Oh, you can turn that so I can see that.
On there. You're allowed.
We're going to get started in about 1 minute.
So this should be the one that Seth has online. No control. One here. Eleven initiatives on this one.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. We're going to get started on our second session of the day. My name is Nephi Cole. I'm a Senior Policy Advisor for Governor Matt Mead in the state of Wyoming. I'm joined by Colin McKee, also a Policy Advisor with me, the Governor at for the state of Wyoming. We're joined by Seth Wagner, our Press Secretary, who is helping us with our online portion of this presentation. And we're very delighted to be able to share this online. We believe we have the technology working effectively. And I think that once most of the people in the room figured that out, we have a lot of people who decided to watch this on YouTube in their jackets, which we can't really blame them for that. So one of the things about technology gives us the opportunity, and hopefully you the opportunity if you're watching this online to go back and view this, and even if you do not have a chance to make it here today, to see what we said here today in this meeting, and to be able to then weigh in just like everyone else, which is about the idea that we're talking about. So again, my name is Nephi Cole, and I'll be the discussion of the second theme of the Governor's Energy Strategy, Efficient Effective Regulation. So we're going to go to the presentation that we have for the second theme and to explain a little bit about this process and what we're doing. So first of all, this is a public process. There you go. Thank you very much. So in 2013, the government set out an energy strategy for the state of Wyoming. That strategy was developed after significant discussion with individuals, people on the ground in the state of Wyoming. The governor noted that when he looked at other energy strategies that he'd seen, he would call those more energy policy documents, that a lot of those policy documents were beautiful documents intended to sit on a shelf. And he wanted something more than that. He wanted a document that reflected not only the policymakers' opinions, but also what could be done, something that was actionable. So he enlisted the help of business leaders to talk about a strategy, a business strategy, that would be led by a governing vision, but then could be developed into actionable initiatives that, like a business would develop things that were going to move that business forward, could then help move the state forward as well. So that public outreach that he undertook in 2013 consisted of letters, taking emails, talking to diverse groups, those public meetings, using technology. So one of the things that we did in the first energy strategy, and we continue to do in this one, is to broadcast these sessions live. And so in 2013, we believe it was fairly innovative to have a live broadcast from the Capitol to discuss all the different possibilities and things we can do in regards to energy. After that, we asked people to then weigh in and to tell us what they thought, to bring the ideas forward in the energy strategy, and to express their thoughts on the ideas that were presented in the energy strategy. So we take those that feedback through surveys, emails, telephone calls, any way that you'd like to reach us. We're happy to take that feedback. I think it's critically important that we're willing to discuss those issues and provide. Governor Mead set out an energy strategy following a very simple vision, a vision that Wyoming should achieve excellence in energy production, development, and stewardship, as well as stewardship of its natural resources for the highest benefit of all of its citizens. And at its core, the energy strategy process is a process that believes that Wyoming has, in the past, and should continue to, reject the notion that you have to choose between having energy and having a clean environment. We believe that in Wyoming, we are world-class leaders in doing both. As the #1 energy exporter in the United States of America, most people don't realize the importance that Wyoming has in terms of creating affordable, abundant energy for the nation, and how that helps us and how that benefits the world. Likewise, when most people drive through Wyoming on their way from through the Dakotas, and then they stop at the first national monument, Devil's Tower, quite proudly, go from Devil's Tower to the First National Park, Yellowstone, so they visit First National Forest. Most people don't realize that they're driving right through what is the world's one of the #1 energy producing leaders in the world. And that's because of the world-class reclamation that we do, and it's because of the commitment that Wyoming has made and our citizens make to preserving our heritage, our open spaces, and our lifestyle. So we're very proud of those things, and we think that we can balance all those things. That vision led to the development of guiding principles that we call achieving excellence in highest benefit. So achieving excellence in things like leaders in energy development, production, generation, export, innovating and adding value to resources, being the standard bearers in responsible development, maintaining and growing energy market shares throughout the state of Wyoming, creating affordable, abundant, and reliable power to production, and conserving natural resources and heritage. So that is the vision and the guiding principles that led to the discussions on the energy strategy. So in the first predominant energy strategy, likewise in this session, we did meetings throughout the state, and this actually without telling you how many people are in the room with us today, we don't know how many are online. This is the smallest number we've had in any of the sessions so far that we've had throughout the state. We average about 50 individuals at all of our sessions, some being considerably more, some being slightly less. So we visited 6 different communities with 6 different types of interest groups, and we asked those folks to weigh in on what they thought about energy in the state of Wyoming, energy, environment, and economy. What are our priorities in the state of Wyoming? We asked people to tell us, what do you think is important? What do you think we should be doing? What do you think we should not be doing? What do you think we do good? What should we do better? What shouldn't we do? And we asked people to have a constructive dialogue with one another, and we facilitated those discussions and had people taking notes of those discussions. We also asked them not just to provide what issues were, but to provide solutions. So we asked people if you said something was a problem, that you have an idea about how to fix it. We asked people to share those with us. We were able to take all those and compile them into 4 general categorical themes. We believe that the comments that we heard can be encompassed in these 4 things of economic competitiveness, expansion, and diversification, in efficient and effective regulation, in natural resource conservation, reclamation, and mitigation, and in education, innovation, and new technologies. As folks brought those ideas forward, brought those concerns forward, and brought their solutions forward, we asked them to think about something that's become kind of a mantra within our group, which is smart solutions. Smart solutions are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So as we talk about things that we think are important with regards to energy goals that we should be undertaking, one of the things we ask people to think about are these SMART goals? Are there specific things that we can be doing? Are they attainable for us, for our agencies, for the people we're asking, we're tasking with doing these things? Are they relevant to us as a state? So are these things that, whether they're global in nature or local in nature, it's important that we pick goals and we pick things to work on that are actually relevant and important to us in the state of Wyoming. And then finally, time-based. We wanted to have goals and things that we could put a finite time on, we could measure completion on, we could attach milestones to it, and then we could ultimately report back on whether or not we were completing those things. So the idea is we went around the state, we asked people for ideas. We asked them to come up with ideas and solutions, concepts, and initiatives that were, as we said, smart actions. So what could we be working on that's smart? Throughout the energy strategy, our theme, and it's an overarching theme that we want to share with you. As in the session before, all the initiatives that came into this theme are initiatives that were proposed within discussions within those meetings. So today, we're vetting those proposals. So we had a lot of discussion in each of those meetings. As you might imagine, with each of those public meetings, we had at least 4 facilitated groups in each meeting, and roughly 2 hours of conversation in relation to these topics. So as we went through those 2 hours of conversation, a lot of information came out of it. a lot of people say, sharing a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts, a lot of opinions. We then took that information back, compiled that information into groups of likeness. And from those groups of likeness, we looked at, okay, so if people identified something as being an issue, what were the solutions that they suggested? And we tried to group those solutions into groups that made sense. And so those groups of solutions, those central ideas, those consensus ideas, are the proposed initiatives you're seeing today. So these initiatives, these aren't initiatives that were developed in Cheyenne. These are initiatives that were developed and thought out through those as a byproduct of those discussions with people throughout the state of Wyoming. Right now, what we're asking people to do is to weigh in on those recommendations, to weigh in on those different ideas and thoughts, and to then give weight to those. There are a few ways that you can do that. The first way is by going to governorwyoming.gov, and that is the governor's website. So go to Governor Matt Mead's website, and there's a tab there, the Energy Strategy tab. Underneath that tab, you'll find links both to this YouTube broadcast, you can go back and watch it if you like, but also to a set of surveys. So those surveys are forms, and they're very easy to fill out. Each form has the initiative in its entirety. So each form, they're separated by themes. Within each theme, you'll see every specific initiative underneath that theme, and then there's a grading scale. And so we ask you to grade the initiatives. It's very simple. We just like people to tell us if you think it's a great idea, you strongly agree with it, you should move forward, give it a 10. If it's a terrible idea, give it a 1. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what that gives us, it gives us quantifiable information that we can provide the governor, who ultimately is the decision maker, who will decide which initiatives will move forward in the 2016 energy strategy. In addition, we'd encourage you to weigh in if you have specific issues you want to talk a little bit more about, to send us an email. And that email is at energy.strategy@wyoming.com. And so following that email address, you can send us an email, and that allows us to have both quantitative and qualitative information on what people thought about specific initiatives that ultimately will help guide the governor as he selects a number of initiatives to move forward in the 2016 energy strategy. So where are we? In 2013, we selected a number of initiatives, 45 in total for the first energy strategy. It was ambitious. We know now that 45 initiatives, when we choose that many initiatives, it's hard to keep people up to date on all those initiatives. We've been very successful with those initiatives. In fact, we've completed roughly 77% of those initiatives. And if you go online to energy.wyoming.gov, the governor's energy strategy website, you can track each specific initiative and see where we are with those initiatives. One of the tendencies of energy strategy is this idea that it's extremely important that not only you start with the public in terms of where you get your ideas from, but also you report back out. So you share with people where you're going and what you're doing with these initiatives. In order to do that, we actually have to develop a tracking mechanism. 45 initiatives is a lot of initiatives, and so energy.wyoming.gov is a website that actually we thought was a really innovative way at the time to be able to share with the public how we were doing on those initiatives. So each of the initiatives from the 2013 energy strategy has its own page on the energy website, energy.wyoming.gov, with a tracking mechanism associated with it, an implementation plan that you'll be able to see on there. And likewise, any of the initiatives that move forward with this energy strategy will have likewise an initiative implementation plan that is specific, measurable, relevant, attainable, time-based, has milestones. Like the old energy strategy, the 2013, you can go on and see the fuel gauge for each initiative. You can determine where we got to with each initiative, how we're doing those initiatives, and how they're moving forward. So this is a list of the 13 energy strategy initiatives, and we're not going to exhaustively go through all of them, but they are exhaustive, and I will tell you that a lot of work has been done on this, and we are committed to the next version. It's been suggested that we should talk about them. Certainly, some of these initiatives, such as baseline water quality testing, got a lot of publicity, a lot of press, a lot of interest and discussion, and most people didn't know that these initiatives were actually tied to the energy strategy. So one of our goals is to make sure that moving forward with this energy strategy, that we share with the public perspective which initiatives are our energy strategy, which are the priority, and how those are moving forward. So the energy strategy, this energy strategy, like the other water strategy, like the 2013 strategy, follows a development process. The development process is public outreach. Those meetings we hosted around. I think we'll talk about that, but take ideas from this, we compile those ideas, and then we develop a sense of potential initiatives that we're presenting to you today. These sets of potential initiatives, once again, are initiatives that are developed by citizens in the state of Wyoming. And the reason we're here today is this is the first opportunity to present those initiatives. This is had some questions. This is a public comment session. It's not. And the reason it's not is because we're not soliciting to comment on today since people are seeing these initiatives for the first time. Over the next 60 days, we will be taking comment via the governor's website, through the surveys, as well as an energy.strategy at wyoming.gov. We'll be taking comments via email, written comments. These calls, come visit us. We'd like to know what you think of these different proposed initiatives, and that helps us define which initiatives will move forward. Ultimately, these initiatives will move forward along with the comments to the governor's desk, and he will be able to select specific initiatives that will go into his 2016 energy strategy. We will publish those initiatives in January and make those available to the legislative body in the state of Wyoming so that they can determine best their thoughts and on moving forward and supporting any of those in the way that they see advisable. So again, I think that's important word, advisable. This is an advisory process. So the reason we're asking for people's input, this is not a voting process, it's advisory, not compulsory. So we're trying to provide feedback and information for decision makers, both in the executive branch and the legislative branch, so that we can see what people in the state of Wyoming are thinking about, what they feel is important, and then that allows decision makers to have more informed conversations on what they feel the priorities should be moving forward as they represent their constituencies appropriately. Next slide. So we have an outreach with this energy strategy. And this energy strategy, we have 6 formal listening sessions. They were held in Gillette, Casper, Cody, Jackson, Rock Springs, and Cheyenne. Each of those listening sessions was hosted by a different type of group. And so those groups ranged from industry groups to environmental groups to elected leaders to agricultural groups. And we had additional opportunities to talk with people throughout the state at a variety of events and meetings, both official and otherwise, to engage with them and ask them what they thought priorities should be with regards to energy. If there's an initiative in the energy strategy today, it's a proposed initiative, it came out of these discussions. So we had hundreds of attendees at these meetings, we had hundreds of comments. So with that, we're going to move into theme 2, and I will share with you all. We're very happy that this is moving much faster than we anticipated. So this session is slated to last until 12 o'clock. We'll probably be done much sooner than that. We have to close 11 specific initiatives in this session. So this session is the efficient, effective regulation session. So in this session, we're going to talk about the idea that came in that we felt fell into the category of efficient, effective regulation. The caveat we talked about in the sessions was, in the public listening sessions throughout the state was, efficient, effective regulation is not, we didn't synthesize what we talked about. But you tell us what that means. In some cases, it might mean better regulation. In some cases, it might mean less. We wanted to know what people thought, and we opened that discussion to everyone to tell us exactly, to tell us what it means to you. But here's some of the things that we heard around the state. Discussing specifically litigation, one of the thoughts were the state is doing a better job of standing up to the federal government. There's a lot of praise for the approach Wyoming has taken, and some called it a schizophrenic approach, where Wyoming has been very good about fighting legislation, fighting regulation where they thought it was inappropriate, while still slanting and making sure that the state is cutting edge, and then we're protecting our privacy, we're protecting our producers, our users, in the state of Wyoming, and making sure that whatever we do, we are the leader, we are cutting edge in the way that we anticipate challenges and regulatory needs, things of that nature. So state primacy, this was a very big topic throughout the listening sessions. People throughout the state think it's important that Wyoming maintains state primacy. Some of the things they said were we should work to develop MOUs that are rock solid. So MOUs are memorandums of understanding between state agencies, federal agencies, local government, state government. So those memorandums dictate how we'll work with one another, who has what responsibilities, and how we'll work. The state primacy discussion also involved other comments, such as federal government needs to recognize states' rights. This was a very, very big topic in Wyoming this year, reflecting the amendment that federal powers within the state, local governments have the capacity and do a very good job of regulating things within their sphere of responsibility. In Wyoming, a lot of the comments were related to the fact that Wyoming has been a leader nationally in things like developing rules related to hydraulic fracturing, rules related to oil and gas, reclamation policies and guidance. People in Wyoming recognize the leadership that we've had, and they're proud of it. They believe that there needs to be recognition from federal authorities. In Wyoming, in general, we tend to do it right. We believe that we're doing it right. People are under the impression that we should be recognized as the primary authority. With regards to regulation, people said we should utilize oil and gas regulations in the upper green across the entire state. So there's a lot of discussion with regards to air quality, how we got to a certain place with air quality in the state of Wyoming, how we might be able to improve based on lessons learned and best practices in one portion of the state. Another part, that was a significant topic for discussion. There needs to be discussion about an alternative tax to supplant taxes from resources. So this came out of our Jackson Hole session. A lot of folks in Jackson Hole felt that there was a need to discuss carbon fuels and regulation and what that does to Wyoming in terms of budgets and economy and how we fill the state coffers. And so in Jackson Hole, we have this point of talking about alternative taxes out of Jackson Hole. Federal permitting. This is a quote from federal permitting discussions. Federal processes, again, it is cumbersome and inhibits efficient development. There's a lot of discussion about how long it takes to get permitting done in Wyoming and how long it takes if you add to the levels of bureaucracy. How can we streamline that? How can we do it better? How can we create better working relationships? That was a big topic of discussion. And then finally, federal permitting costs are increased when there is redundancy and additional requirements. This kind of falls in that same category. Folks are talking about not only the time commitment that it takes when you have redundant layers of permitting, but also what are the costs in terms of man hours to businesses? How much does it cost to sit idle? There's a lot of discussion throughout the state on these issues. One thing I would share with you is that throughout the state, there was a lot more in common on all these discussions than there was divergence. I think when you went, for example, from one corner of the state to another, folks might have assumed that a different interest group hosting a meeting would lead to an entirely different set of comments. That didn't tend to be the case. What tended to occur was you actually had people in Wyoming, no matter where they were at, recognize the same issues and thought that we need to be leaders in addressing them. So with that, we'd like to share with you guys the proposed initiatives that came out of the public sessions for Theme 2, Efficient and Effective Regulation. So the first proposed initiative was Energy Unit Tax Initiative. And as a reminder, with all of these initiatives represent consensus ideas that came forth from citizens. So these are ideas that are being vetted through this process. We're asking people to weigh in on these ideas by going to the governor's website and going to the energy strategy link and weighing in the surveys that are there, and by sending us emails to tell us what you think of these different ideas. The first, Energy Unit Tax Initiative. And all of the above energy portfolio is important to the state of Wyoming. Likewise, revenues from energy must be predictable and consistent. Wyoming should develop recommendations for an energy unit tax to levy tax on all energy resources on a BTU energy equivalent basis and provide those findings to the legislature for consideration of action. Taxing energy sources on an equity allows to appropriately function. So this initiative came from a lot of discussion about the fact that Wyoming is a leader in many energy production resources, and that in Wyoming we derive a large amount of benefit from the energy industry. It's a boon to our state. So in discussion of that, there was considerable discussion throughout the state on making sure that we're fair and equitable with all energy producers regardless of source. So it was a very spirited discussion throughout the state. This initiative reflects that. And this initiative is Initiative 1 in Efficient and Effective Regulation. I encourage you guys to go online to weigh in on whether or not work on this initiative should become a priority in the governor's 2016 energy strategy.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, Nephi. The second proposed initiative that we have is titled the NEPA Permitting Team Initiative. I guess a little bit of what I'll discuss is in the preface of this initiative, but Wyoming is about 50% of the surface land in Wyoming is federally owned, and a greater amount of the subsurface is federally owned. And so this entails nearly any project in Wyoming or any action in Wyoming having to go through a National Environmental Policy Act review or a NEPA review to consider the environmental impacts and any mitigation that would come with that for the construction of projects. This NEPA process has tended to bog down projects sometimes so long to where they become uneconomic at some point because markets have changed or the permitting is too long and cumbersome, and companies consider going to private land as opposed to public. There have been a number of attempts to streamline or find areas where we can make the NEPA process more efficient, but those have by and large not resulted in a great expediting of the process. So we heard this from a number of folks around the state, and so the idea, the theme for the initiative that we came up with is Wyoming's land base is comprised of roughly 50% federal surface land with greater federal ownership of the subsurface. This requires almost any action conducted to undergo NEPA review. The state will appoint a NEPA team comprised of local, state, and federal employees, industry, non-governmental, and others to identify areas where specific NEPA analysis can be streamlined and expedited. So the way this initiative is written right now is kind of a vision statement, but it would lead us in a direction of finding a diverse team to work on NEPA issues to try to find those opportunities or areas where perhaps the state has already conducted some environmental review that the federal government can tier their analysis off of, or any other actions along those lines, but to find areas where we can attempt to make the NEPA process a little less onerous. So that is the proposed initiative number 2.
Thank you, Colin. As a reminder on these initiatives, you can weigh in on these initiatives. I know if you're here live, you're going to get sick of hearing me say this, so please go to the governor's website. On that website, go to the Energy Strategy tab, and under that tab, please go to find the surveys there and weigh in on these surveys. It's important information for us. It helps us make decisions related to these issues, and it tells us what you think about these issues. The next issue is the Endangered Species Act initiative. It's Efficient Effective Regulation, initiative number 3. And to provide a little background, wildlife is important to people in the state of Wyoming. It's part of our custom and culture. Interestingly, when you look at the history of wildlife conservation in the United States of America, the North American model of wildlife conservation is the most successful in the world. It's a wildlife conservation model that relies on users. It relies on sportsmen. It relies on input from states. So, for example, in the early 1900s, there were 500,000 deer in the United States of America. There were less than 100,000 elk. There were 530 bison. Today are over 20 million deer in the United States of America. There are over 1 million elk. There are, I believe the number is over 500,000 at this time bison. But I'm going to have to double check my bison numbers. And so, these represent something that we've all known for a long time. states manage. We manage well. And so in 1973, there was augmentation of management through the Endangered Species Act. Adopted in 1973, that act plays a significant role in species management throughout the United States of America. And Wyoming, of course, has had some interactions with the Endangered Species Act in regards to a number of high-profile species, such as wolves, such as bears, most recently the greater sage-grouse, where Wyoming was influential nationally and has been recognized by every level of national leadership as being the leaders in having defined the way to move the Endangered Species Act forward so that it, to quote Secretary Jewell, works the way it was supposed to. It's been a long time coming, but we feel like this was a big win for the state of Wyoming. So this initiative, Initiative 3, supports the governor's initiative within the Western Governors Association. Governor Mead currently is the chair of the Natural Resources Committee for the National Governors Association and chair of the Western Governors Association. As chair of Western Governors, Governor Mead has selected endangered species as his chair's priority. This initiative would support that. Let me read the initiative. Adopted in 1973, the Federal Endangered Species Act plays a significant role in species management and economic development in Wyoming and throughout the country. The ESA can be an effective tool to protect and recover truly risk. However, in its current form, it is not working. The ESA needs updating to become more effective and efficient. Wyoming state agencies will participate in the Governor's Endangered Species Initiative through the Western Governors Association to aid in the development of pragmatic and innovative methods to improve the ESA. This effort will aid Wyoming's wildlife and economy. That is initiative number 3, the Endangered Species Act initiative. If you feel that that initiative should be moved forward in the Governor's energy strategy, and you'd like to weigh in on that, please weigh in utilizing methodologies that we've explained of either emailing and using the surveys that are available on the Governor's website. That is governorwyo.gov under the energy strategy link.
The next proposed initiative, number 4, Federal Lands Pilot Project Initiative, I would say it relates somewhat to initiative number 2, the NEPA permitting team, in that I think there was a general consensus from folks that we heard around the state that, again, when actions are being attempted to be undertaken on federal land, that the simple permitting process can bog projects down to a point where it either takes too long for them to get up and going, or it just simply makes them uneconomic. And so another general idea that Nephi and I were able to distill from the various comments that we collected through the state was an idea of a pilot project. And so I'll read through the initiative and then talk a little bit more of it. The large presence of federal lands in Wyoming and their corresponding regulatory requirement create hindrances to expedient action resolution, whether for economic development or resource conservation planning. Has authority to provide opportunities for states to take regulatory control over certain aspects of land management, federal land management. Wyoming governor will work with Congress to support efforts that will allow states to gain more regulatory control over aspects of federal permitting, expediting the process. So this is what Nephi and I were able to distill from the comments that we got from the public, working with Congress to allow them to, to have them open up opportunities for states to manage portions of, regulations over federal lands. This is one that if individuals have ideas, other ideas, I think on if there are other ways that we could get some type of a pilot project like this up and going, if there are other mechanisms that the state can use to petition the federal government to take over some limited amount of regulatory authority over their federal lands, I think we'd be very interested in it. So, as we said, these are proposed at this point. We're still looking for feedback to try to firm these up to make them as good as they can be. So that is initiative number 4.
Thank you, Colin. With each of these initiatives, it's important to note that these are the preliminary ideas brought forward by the public that are suggestions as to what we should include in the NME strategy. As these initiatives are absorbed and become the action items for an agency, the substance of what it takes and what that initiative means and what it will become grows significantly. So each agency who is responsible for an initiative will be developing an implementation plan on the initiatives that are actually selected. And within that implementation plan, there will be specific goals, there will be milestones, there will be accountability associated with that, and then there are proposals of whether or not that agency can incorporate that into their budgets and duties, or whether or not there needs to be an effort to look for those resources in order to bolster the agency to be able to perform that initiative. So with that, I'll move to the States' Rights Initiative. And this initiative is a great example of the discussions that we've had ongoing throughout the state about what we need to do, what we do well, and what we can do better. I'll read the initiative. The States' Rights Initiative, excuse me. During the past 4 years, the federal government has promulgated numerous regulations which seek to expand their authorities, encroaching on state primacy. These actions affect economic stability and state sovereignty. Recognition of the impacts of regulatory overreach at times leads to formally challenging such actions. Wyoming will enhance its capacity to identify federal overreach and to proactively address it. That is the initiative, initiative number 5, which is the States' Rights Initiative.
The next one, number 6, there's actually a fairly specific comment relating to that led to the development of this proposed initiative. And so this is the Federal State Partnership Initiative, and it kind of focuses on an account that was created in Wyoming, can't remember when, but a number of years ago, the Federal Natural Resource Policy Account. This account can be utilized by state and local governments to enhance their efforts to participate in federal actions such as the development of the Bureau of Land Management resource management plans that dictate actions on federal lands throughout the state. It allows local government entities to participate in those processes at a more advanced level than they might have been able to otherwise. And we believe, and I believe that a number of the local communities would agree, that this account has been very effective. It has allowed Wyoming to participate in these federal processes more, and so there is a proposed initiative that would look to enhance that, the capabilities of that account. So the proposal, as of now, reads: the state of Wyoming and local government entities are affected by federal land management actions. The Wyoming Federal Natural Resource Policy Account was created to assist both state and local efforts, balancing federal, state, and local policies. Its effectiveness has allowed for greater opportunities to utilize federal lands at every level of government. The executive branch and local governmental entities will work with Wyoming legislature to increase the capacity of this account, making it more useful to state and local governments participating in federal actions.
Thank you, Colin. This initiative is a great example that Colin just mentioned of the collaborative nature of this process and the foresight along these leaders. So, for example, the FNRPA account, as it's known, the Federal Natural Resource Policy Account, was created by the Wyoming legislature, and it represents some forward thinking by that group, with regard, which is not unique. And so, with regards to these initiatives are advisory. So they're advisory to the governor's office, as well as providing information to other decision makers for consideration as they look at the thoughts and comments that come in, and then the initiatives that are proposed gives them an opportunity to ascertain how those things fit in to Wyoming, how these things may fit in with the constituency of the state in its entirety in terms of the governor, and with other elected leaders in terms of their constituency and how they incorporate these thoughts and comments on behalf of their constituency. So these advisory initiatives were proposed by the public. These are ideas that came into us. What we're asking you to do is to go online, for those of you who are watching online, and for those of you who hear about this, and to weigh in and tell us which of these initiatives you think should be prioritized. You can read each initiative on the governor's website, and by going to the survey tools that are available on the energy strategy page and ranking those initiatives. We appreciate it. We think it's valuable. And we ask you, as you go on there, to we ask not only for your thought and your input, but also where you're from in the state, what type of interest you represent, recognizing that there are diverse interests in the state of Wyoming. There are a lot of different constituency groups, there are different stakeholders, and it's important in order to make good decisions. The government feels very strongly to select the initiatives that they should move forward. If you have an understanding of proposing those, how people think and feel about those things. So with that, I'll go on to the 7th initiative, the State Ozone Air Quality Initiative. Due to a number of factors, air quality standards have fluctuated in portions of western Wyoming, at times exceeding standards. The state, industry, NGOs, and others came together to determine reasonable steps that could be taken to reduce emissions. Wyoming will institute a similar process to identify reasonable emissions controls across the state. Identification of positive actions will be implemented. That is initiative number 7, the statewide ozone air quality implementation initiative.
Thanks, Nathan. I just realized that I got to do my other responsibility here, which is to flip through slides, and we're still sitting on slide 2. So I'm sorry for folks in the crowd. All right. Initiative number 8, Self-Bonding Review Initiative. The Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality manages self-bonding of companies in the state. These bonds lower the cost of doing business for those companies in Wyoming, while assuring that reclamation responsibilities are secure. Wyoming will conduct a review of its self-bond regulations. Consideration of the status quo and future needs lead to recommendations. So this program has been, I believe it's been established in Wyoming for about 4 decades, and it has been very successful in lowering the cost for businesses to do business in Wyoming, and it is a way for them to prove their financial wherewithal to cover reclamation costs. And so it was recommended that the program just be reviewed, and if there are any ways to streamline it or to solidify it a little bit more, then we would take those into consideration.
Thank you very much, Colin. The next initiative, again, as with all these initiatives, these are initiatives that were proposed and brought up in 6 public meetings throughout the state. So this, they come because we talked about them in a manner that led to them being included as part of a consensus, of thoughts and ideas coming up. This one was the subject of considerable conversation at least one meeting. It's the idea of it is Initiative 9, an alternative tax initiative, and again, these are initiatives we're asking you to do on the appropriateness of, and to do so on the governor's website through the surveys that are available to tell us what to think about these proposals as to whether or not they should move forward as actual initiatives under the 2016 energy strategy. So the alternative tax initiative 9. Wyoming's #1 industry development. Revenues generated by the industry allow state and local governments to provide benefits and services at low and no cost to constituents. In response to concern over tax revenues declining and the resulting necessary reduction of government services, the state will analyze various forms of alternative tax. Ideas will be generated for what the most appropriate form of taxation is to ensure the state receives necessary tax revenue to provide public services that are required by law. Findings on appropriate alternatives will be presented to the legislature. So again, this is an initiative. It's not an initiative that could. It's based on the feedback that we received and a series of analysis that determine whether or not it's an initiative that should, in fact, be included in the 2016 energy strategy or not. So that is Initiative 9. The proposal was for the alternative tax initiative.
Great. The proposed initiative number 10, its title is Office of Energy and Environment Initiative. So as Nephi and I were traveling around the state in August to the various communities for them to discuss and put together thoughts about what the state should be working on, there was a recognition that this public engagement process is one that I think the public has come to like. quite a bit, and one that they maybe beyond like that they perhaps expect from their government. You know, we've now gone through this process a few different times with the 2013 energy strategy and outreach process. One thing that stemmed from that was the water strategy from last year that Nephi was the sole coordinator of the public process on that, but it really is a way to engage the public from a grassroots level and to identify what is important to the public as far as energy and environmental policies for the state. And one thing that I think is really interesting or great about this process is that it also allows us to identify things that we may not have otherwise thought about. You know, as Nephi said, I think at the start of the first one, first session is we can sit in Cheyenne in our offices and come up with any number of ideas and things to work on. Some might be okay, some may not, but how relevant are they to the work of the overall state and the needs? And so this public engagement process is one that, you know, we might find great initiatives, we might find some that aren't so great, but it does allow the public that opportunity to really get engaged in what we're doing. So, so number 10, the Office of Energy and Environment Initiative. The energy strategy was first developed in 2013. In 2014, the Wyoming Water Strategy was completed. The process to develop these plans and initiatives is founded in a public input and advisory effort. It presents opportunities for the public to engage in assessment and development of energy and environmental policy in Wyoming. It is effective and has become an expectation of Wyoming citizens. Wyoming will create an Office of Energy and Environment that will institute, formalize, and carry on this process of policy development for future strategic planning.
Thank you, Colin. So the concept behind that initiative was that hopefully the thought that you know, that we believe that a public process, that things should start at the organic level and be discussed openly a lot before they become policy. You know, that is the notion behind this, and that it shouldn't matter who's in what office. This should be a policy that exists and a protocol and a methodology that exists and continues throughout the state to provide input. That should be an expectation of people in the state of Wyoming, that policy is always driven that direction. So that's the reasoning behind, again, that initiative, and it was a common theme that we heard, that people appreciate the process, appreciate the opportunity to provide feedback and to weigh in from the beginning through the end. So that takes us to initiative number 11, which is the final initiative in this session. It is the Federal Carbon Dioxide Initiative, and I will just read it. So this is an initiative, again, like all the initiatives that we're asking you to weigh in on governor.wyo.gov, to go to the Energy Strategy tab and to weigh in with your thoughts on these initiatives. The US EPA has recently finalized regulations to lower carbon emissions from power plants across the US. In Wyoming, carbon dioxide reductions of 44% are required. Views on this regulation are varied across the state. To ensure proper actions are taken, Wyoming will institute a two-pronged approach. One, Wyoming will participate in analysis and litigation if federal actions go beyond the scope of the law. Two, Wyoming will work to develop a state compliance plan. Regulations which are legally binding will lead to a state compliance plan, allowing the state to maintain primacy of air quality regulations in Wyoming. So this initiative was based on discussions and comments that were very common throughout all the meetings in the state of Wyoming. And they were described in July as the idea that Wyoming needs to get very good at being schizophrenic. And that is fighting things that we believe are not legal and are not in the interest of the state of Wyoming, while preparing if something is found to be legally binding and putting Wyoming in the best position to be able to manage its own destiny. So those are some of the comments and thoughts that led to this initiative, and it's their initiative dealing with Federal Carbon Dioxide Initiative that's directly related to 111B.
Thanks, Nephi. So that wraps up the discussion of the proposed initiatives for NEED 2. Well, I guess a couple of things first. We will be accepting comment through October 30th. You can find the surveys on Governor Mead's website at governor.wyo.gov, where you can go through and read and rank the initiatives. We will also be accepting written comment through energy.strategy@wyo.gov. So we please ask that you go there and let us know what you think of these proposed initiatives. After October 30th, we will work with state agencies to I guess, see the feasibility of some of these initiatives or some of the aspects of these initiatives. After that, we will present them to the governor, and he will select what will go into the 2016 energy strategy. I believe that wraps it up for this session. We got done a little bit early. Theme 3 will start at 1:30. We look forward to having you back for that.
One important note, as we move forward and to kind of piggyback on what Colin mentioned, it's very likely that you'll see 3 to 5 initiatives from each of the specific themes moving forward. So as we talk about the importance of reading through all these initiatives and prioritizing them, and we realize that, again, with each of these initiatives, there's a variety of thought and opinion and practicality and possibility associated with all these initiatives. What we're hoping for is input that will help us define which are the most productive initiatives that would help carry Wyoming forward in achieving excellence for the highest benefit of the people of the state of Wyoming. So again, we anticipate that there will be a very limited number of initiatives from each theme moving forward. So we'd like feedback on what you all think about what should be those that do indeed continue and that shape the state for the next several years. Thank you. Thank you very much, and we will see you at 1:30.